19 last time. So we're in chapter 21 now. This is the next chapter that has Elijah in it. And so although Elijah is not in this particular passage, eventually in this chapter we will see him again. Now, I grew up with a cassette tapes from it was called Patch the Pirate. Anybody ever heard of Patch the Pirate before? One person at least. And so I went from cassette tapes to CDs, and although he does not make them anymore, his family does, and so they are, it's like stories, almost like Adventures in Odyssey type of thing. And so I would go to bed listening to them. And in one of the cassette tapes, one of the stories, I believe it was called the Mr. Slippy River Race. And so it had this particular song on there. I'm not going to play it because it's a definitely in my terms, an ancient children's song. And so, but my son was like, I've never heard of that. So I played with the cartoon that's been remade, not when I was a kid. They didn't have cartoons of this particular thing. And so the title of that song is called the title of this message, which is the Poochie Lip Disease. And so that is why I put it on here, just because, you know, it brought back some memories, because the song was about this particular passage of Scripture. And so we're going to look at some thoughts in regards to that. So it's called the Poochie Lip Disease. If you don't know what that is, have you ever met somebody who was whining or complaining or griping? They have their lip like this, or that kind of thing. That's what the Poochie Lip Disease is. And so we're going to look at some thoughts in that. And of course, it's all about Ahab here and Jezebel and Naboth as well. But here's a couple of thoughts before we get in there. The words that I'm looking at to describe the Poochie Lip Disease: selfishness, jealousy, covetousness. Those are the three words that you could describe that you want something bad enough. And then the interesting part is those internally, those sins start very internally. Like you look at somebody's car and you don't verbalize it, but on the inside you're thinking, boy, I wish I had that. I make more money than they make, and I don't have one of those. I wonder if they could give it to me. I wonder if I could trade for it. I wonder if they would sell it to me. Those types of things. And then what happens is, because it's an internal thing, it sits there. And it sits there. We think about it in our minds, and it grows. And these sins lead to greater sins. And we're going to look at, in Ahab and Jezebel's life, how this one seemingly small sin leads to a huge sin. And the two things that the Bible uses in reference to this, the Bible says, remember, the small foxes are the ones that ruin the vineyards, the vines. And behold, a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. How many of you ever make bread? It doesn't take much leaven for it to be a lump. I have not made bread. I've made cookies before, and it called for baking soda, right, or baking powder. Either or, both. Some whatever, baking something. And so I read it, it's like 1 teaspoon or something like that, and I read 1 cup. And so I put a whole cup in there. Yeah, that was our face when I bit into that thing. It looked good, but when you bite into it, it hurt my mouth to eat. It was so, oh man. I was like, what did we do wrong? And we wondered why, because we were in and Michael, he was house sitting, and they said, use anything in the pantry. So we did. And I was wondering why we went through a whole thing of baking soda. It was like, because it wasn't supposed to use that much. And so, but it didn't take much, right? Same thing. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much jealousy, selfishness, covetousness to lead us to where we never thought we would be. And so here's the thought for this evening's message. Be happy with what God has given you. Just be happy with it. God gave it to you. There's no reason to want more. There's no reason to desire more, because if you got what you wanted, thinking that it would that you wouldn't want anything else, you would still want something more. You would still want the newer thing or the bigger thing, or something flashier would come. The flesh is never satisfied with what we have, so just be happy. God has given that to you. If He wants you to have more, He'll give you more. If He wants you to have less, He'll give you less. So let's look at 1 Corinthians 21, verses 1 through 3. And it came to pass after these things that Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard, which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. And Ahab spake unto Naboth, saying, Give me thy vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near unto my house. And I would give thee for it a better vineyard than it. Or, if it seem good to thee, I would give thee the worth of it in money. Verse 3, And Naboth said to Ahab, The Lord forbid it me, that I should give the inheritance of my fathers unto thee. And Ahab came into his house heavy and displeased, because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him. For he had said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my fathers. And he lay down upon his bed, turned away his face, and would eat no bread. Boy, what a baby. What a big baby. And so here's the thought. The first phrase I want to look at this evening is from this passage, give me thy vineyard. Now, he is not demanding it per se. Now, he may have had that tone of that desire. He may have gone to Naboth and expecting the vineyard, because he was willing to pay almost any price. You tell me what it's worth, I would give you that money. He wasn't asking him to just give it to him because he was king. He was going to trade for it or sell it or buy it from him. But what started as a simple business proposition, that's what it was. Just a simple business proposition ended in a way that neither of them expected, because of selfishness and greed. So here's Naboth. He sees that vineyard and says, hey, I kind of want that. It's close to my house. I can put some herbs there. I'm going to go and buy and trade for that of one of my other vineyards, or I'm going to go buy it. He had every expectation that when he left Naboth's house, that he would have that vineyard. That was the expectation. He did not think that it would ever be a no. He did not think that he would ever not have that piece of vineyard. So he knew in his own mind, I'm going to have that at any cost. And so that's what he did. Ahab wanted a vineyard in Jezreel that was close to his royal house, so he was willing to trade for it. It all sounded great and good. Now, when Naboth said no, he was not expecting what would happen after that. Now, if he knew who Jezebel was, then he may have expected some kind of repercussions for saying no to her husband or to the king. But the response that Ahab had, I couldn't imagine my kids doing such things. If my kid did that, if I told my kid, Caleb, no, you cannot have a cookie for dessert, and he stuck out his lip, went into his room, shut the door, got on his bed, faced the wall, and said, Dad, I'm not going to eat until I get that cookie. At first, I would laugh, thinking that he's joking, like, okay, you're being funny, man. And then I'd be like, you're serious. Fine, then don't eat. That's not my problem. That's your problem. I couldn't imagine that happening. Here is a grown man who is king of Samaria. You would think there'd be a little bit more maturity in him than that, but as we know from looking at his previous times and who his wife is, there's not much maturity there. And then it says this. Here was Naboth's answer. The Lord forbid it me, that I should give the inheritance of my fathers unto thee. It wasn't just, no, I kind of like this vineyard. No, it's I don't want to. Too much work. I got this. I don't want to trade. Don't want the money. I just want to keep this. It was no. It wasn't just me saying no. Who did he say said no? The Lord. It's not just me saying no, king. The Lord forbid it me. I cannot. Even if I wanted to, I cannot give you this piece of land. I cannot sell it to you. I cannot trade it to you. You cannot have this land. It's impossible. So Naboth's answer was an emphatic no. No ifs, ands, or buts. Don't barter. Don't ask me for any money. How many of you have ever bought a vehicle before at a car dealership or something? Okay. How many of you ever? If you don't raise your hand, that means you stole one. Okay. So how many of you ever bought one? Sure. You bought how many of you saw the sticker price and bought it for exactly the sticker price? Or how many of you always buy it for lower than the sticker price? Why do you do that? It's because you know that I'm not paying that. You're going to barter with them. You're going to bargain with them. You're going to, because you know it can't go down. In fact, one of the first vehicles that my wife and I bought, we bought it from the same place that in the movie Flywheel from the server that we watched. We bought it from that car dealership, and I told this guy, I said, I could really use that CRV, and literally, they said, here's the price. I said, I can't. That's impossible. Literally, that is impossible. We are a young couple, and that is impossible. I don't care what you say, that's impossible. And then he asked me something I answer that you should never answer, right? And you know what it is. Well, what is your bottom line? So what did I tell him? My bottom line. And I said, this is it. I can't do it. He said, well, I can't do it for that. There's just no way. He probably thought I was nuts. That's basically giving the card. He calls me back, and he says, we'll do the deal. I said, no way. He said, yeah. And he said, my boss told me, because we chit-chatted, all kinds of stuff. And so my boss said that pretty much you can have it for what you did. And between me and you, he made $1 off of that car. That was it. I said, no way. He said, yeah, I'm not pulling your leg. He basically is giving the car at cost. And I was like, oh, what a nice guy. And it lasted me until it died. I mean, it died on the road later on. But we were finagling back and forth. Here's Naboth. He said, no, don't give me another price. Don't say, how about 2 vineyards? How about 3? He said, no. The Lord forbid it. I don't care what you say. I cannot. I wish that we have more Christians when Satan tries to get us to do something to sell out, that we say, no, I can't. Not because of me, but the Lord forbid that I should do such things. Now, why did he say the Lord forbid it? Was it just because it was no? But what was the reason why he said it? He thought the Lord forbid it. And during word commentary said this: his rejection of the otherwise reasonable offer was rooted in the ancient Israelite idea of the land. They believed that the land was an inheritance from God, parceled out to individual tribes and families according to his will. And in fact, Paul says this: for God hath expressly and for divers weighty reasons forbidden the alienation of lands from the tribes of the families which they were allotted. And the verses are there on your notes. So Leviticus 21, 25, Numbers 36, Ezekiel chapter 46. I can't. This is impossible. This was not just given to me by my father and my grandfather and their followers, but the Lord gave it to them to stay in this tribe. I cannot do such things. And so Ahab said, well, that makes sense. That's reasonable. I would have to agree with you. If I were in your shoes, I would do the same thing. That was not his attitude. What was his attitude? Selfishness, jealousy, and covetousness. Verses 4 through 7. Chapter 1, 4 through 7. And Ahab came into his house, heavy and displeased, because of the words Naboth the Jezreel had spoken to him. For he has said, I would not give thee the inheritance of my fathers. And he laid him down upon his bed, and turned away his face, and would eat no bread. That phrase, turned away his face, he literally would look at the wall. So, my son was talking, and there was I got 3 dogs, and I got a dog crate in my living room, and the door stays open, and so my Nova, the lab, was in there, and my son said, boy, she must love that crate. I said, no, she's pouting. And I said, he said, how do you know that? I would do what my dog does. She would come to me, I would love on her, and she's wanting more love, and I was supposed to get on the couch, and I said, get off the couch. And so she jumps off the couch, she would go to the crate, and then she would, like I'm sitting there, she would face here, look at me, and make eye contact, and then she does this. And she won't look at me. And then, or she will lay down and kind of give me the eye, and she sees me, and then she'll look away. Like, I'll tell you, I'm like, you can do what you want to, dog. That's not my problem. You know, what's she doing? She's pouting. She's turning the other way. Well, I ain't going to look at you. Don't look at me. I don't care. You know, that's the idea. And so here Naboth had that same thing. Well, I'm just going to look at the wall. As if that bothered Naboth at all. Was Naboth losing any sleep or food over this transaction? No. Who was it the only one that it bothered? The one who didn't even have it to begin with? The one who wanted it? The greedy one? The selfish one? The one with the Poochie Lip Disease? Verse number 5. And then everything changes. But Jezebel. Boy, those are words you don't want to hear. But Jezebel, his wife, came to him and said unto him, why is thy spirit so sad, that thou eatest no bread? Why are you so upset that you're not eating anything? What's going on? And if I was speaking to kids, I would act this out more, but you can hear him with the lip out. So I want you to read it as I read it, and do it with your lip. Don't physically do that, but as if your lip was out. Verse number 6. He said unto her, because I spake unto Naboth the Jezreelite, and said unto him, give me thy vineyard for money, or else, if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. He said, I was reasonable. He said, I just went to him and I said this. I don't understand why he's so mad. And he answered, I would not give thee my vineyard. And Jezebel should have said, okay, get over it. Eat some food. You got plenty of vineyards. Try again later. What are you doing? No, she says in verse number 7, and Jezebel his wife said unto him, dost not thou govern the kingdom of Israel? Don't you know that you are king? Don't you know that you can have what you want? Don't you know that nobody should say no to you? Arise and eat bread, and let thine heart be merry. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. What does she say? I will fix everything. Oh, thanks, honey. You're just something. I wonder if Naboth knew if Ahab knew how Jezebel was going to fix things. I dare say that Ahab's the type of person, king, and man. When Jezebel said that, he knew about what was going to happen, but he's like, don't tell me. What I don't know can't hurt me. I don't know. playing the ignorant, dumb husband, dumb king. And so let's see some thoughts in here. Ahab came into his house heavy and displeased. He was sad. Cannot believe that being told no would hurt him so much. But let me ask you this. How many of you have ever been to Safeway or Walmart and witnessed something like this? A kid points to a toy or to a candy bar and says, "Mom, can I have that?" And mom says, "No." "But I want that." "You can't have that." They put it in the cart. "Put that back." "But I want that." "We're not going to get that." And then the kid starts screaming and hitting things and crying, all these types of things. What does that kid think that that's going to do? Get him what he wants. Do you know why it does work? Because it works. It has worked before. They are more stubborn than the parent is. Same thing with this. He's like, "Well, I'm just sad. I am heartbroken. I cannot believe that his saying no really turned this man's life upside down." It wasn't like he killed his wife. It wasn't like he destroyed his vineyards, that Naboth came with armies. But just saying no to one vineyard destroyed this man's life. This was very characteristic of Ahab. He was a spineless, pouting person who he acted childlike whenever he met adversity. Let me ask you this. We may not agree or say that times in our lives we may act like Ahab. But how many times have we not gotten our way, that we think that we should have gotten our way, and we act just like that? Well, that's not fair. Life's not fair. That's not right. Because at that moment in time, what was Ahab's biggest desire at that moment in time? That land. To us, it seems ridiculous. To him, it was huge. What at that moment in time, the kid who wants the candy bar, what is the biggest desire of that kid at that time? That candy bar. To us, no big deal. Who cares? It's just a candy bar. But let's look back in our lives when we get so upset about something and we think our world has come to an end and fallen apart. People look at us and say, "It's just that. Why are you so upset about that?" But to us, at that moment, it is the biggest thing. And so therefore, our expectations were here. They were crushed. And now we respond with, "Life's not fair." Dilday said this, "So the scene is a vivid picture of peevish Ahab turning his face to the wall and refusing to eat. He was like a sulking child who could not get his own way. If I can't get my way, then I'm going to do this. I'm going to pitch a fit." And though we may not act physically like this, but how many times have we uttered prayers that kind of sound childlike because we don't get what we think we don't get what we ask God for? Or God is too, in our minds, he's slower in getting us our request than what we wanted to. So in our prayers are very childlike. It's not fair, God. I don't understand why you're doing this to me. Clark said this. Poor soul. He was Lord over 10/12 of the land and became miserable because he could not get a poor man's vineyard added to all that he possessed. As my dad used to tell me, the grass is always greener on the other side. And then you get there, and what happens? The grass is always greener on the other side. And so God doesn't give us what we want sometimes because he knows that would not stop us wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting more. My niece, Cassie, she was allergic to everything but grass. When people ask me, she's like, "What can she have?" Like, I don't know what she can have. I know she can eat grass if she wanted to, but she's allergic to nuts, to dairy, to everything you can imagine. And then she finally was able to grow out of some of it. And she had, I love Kraft mac and cheese, like a whole box of it is like an appetizer for me. I mean, it's the greatest thing. My wife hates this stuff because it's fake, but it's good fake mac and cheese. And the first time that she ate some stuff, she's like, this is gross. Why would she say that? Because she never had it before, right? How many of you have ever gone on a diet where you don't eat sweet things? Sure, right? And you miss the chocolate because you know what chocolate tastes like. And then you get this diet chocolate, sugarless chocolate, and you're like, this is not the real thing. This is disgusting. This is nasty. Why would you eat this, right? But if you're on a diet for a year without any sweets, and then you eat the fake stuff, all of a sudden that tastes halfway decent at that point, right? And so here, he had it all. He craved for that. If he had sold him the land, what would have kept Ahab from getting all the other vineyards in town? Well, I'm satisfied with that. No, you're never satisfied. The flesh is never satisfied with what it has. His expectation was crushed because he heard the word no. I think sometimes we need to hear the word no just because we need to be told no sometimes. We live in a world where people are not used to hearing the word no. But why? The answer is just no. Well, give me a good reason. The answer is just no. I don't understand. It's just no. You have an option of yes and the option of no. I chose no. Just because you don't like the no doesn't mean I changed my mind. He thought he was owed this piece of land. If it's owed to me, it's already mine. He went there with the expectation of it already being his, and then he was told no. That's covetousness. That's selfishness. And then it says, dost thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? Arise, eat bread. Let thine heart be merry. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. Jezebel, at that moment, truly revealed who actually ruled in the palace of Israel. Was Ahab the one on the throne? Physically, yes. But did she rule the kingdom? Did he rule the kingdom? Absolutely not. Jezebel ruled that kingdom. And everybody knew that, including Elijah, who ran from Jezebel because of the same thing. Knapp said this, alas, was it not she that governed it really with more daring ungodliness than Ahab, her puppet husband? Ahab is not known in history for being a great king or any kind of king of any sort. We live in a world that people believe if they whine enough and expect something bad enough, that they deserve whatever they want. I don't know why I can't have that. I whined enough. I'm expecting it. I don't understand why there is a no. We need to be, again, satisfied with whatever God has for us. If we have a hard time with our emotions, covetousness, selfishness, when people tell us no, how are we going to respond when God tells us no? That same exact way. 8 through 14. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name, that conniving, and sealed them with his seal, just in case. It's her idea, and so if it's a good idea, she gets the credit. If it's a bad idea, Ahab gets the blame for it, pretty much. And sent the letters to the elders and to the nobles that were in the city, dwelling with Naboth. And she wrote in the letters, saying, proclaim a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people, and set 2 men, sons of Belial, before him to bear witness against him, saying, thou dost blaspheme God and the king, and then carry him out and stone him, and he may die. Wait, time out. Did Naboth blaspheme God or the king? No. All he did was say no. And Jezebel said, I'll fix his little red wagon. I'm going to kill him. Can you imagine being the witnesses that got this man dead? Verse number 11. In the men of his city, even the elders and the nobles who were the inhabitants in his city, did as Jezebel had sent unto them, and as it was written in the letters which she had sent unto them. Talking about the king being spineless. These men, same way. They proclaimed a fast and set Naboth on high among the people. Now, did these elders and rulers know what was happening? Yeah, it was pretty obvious in the letter that we're going to set Naboth up to die, and we're going to try to do it in a legal way, because if we have witnesses stating that he blasphemed God, then that is a reason for him to be stoned. So that's going to be a legality. But if you lie in such ways, you would think her conscience would still be guilty. But I'm afraid Jezebel had no conscience. It was so seared, and she was just doing that. I mean, why not just go to his house with the army that you have, take him out and stone him yourself? Why go through all of these things? I think it was to make everybody who saw that think that the king and queen was right and Naboth was wrong, the ones who didn't know the whole story. That's a lot like what happens on social media. People are quick to throw knives and tomatoes and cause blame, and we have only one side of the story. We don't even know the real story at that. Same thing here. Verse number 13. And there came in 2 men, children of Belial, and sat before him, and the men of Belial witnessed against him, even against Naboth, in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth did blaspheme God and the king. Then they carried him forth out of the city, and stoned him with stones, that he died. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth is stoned and is dead. Wow. 8 through 14. So she wrote letters to in Ahab's name, sealed them, sent letters and to the nobles in the city. This shows at least that Ahab had to have known, at the very least, something about Jezebel's wicked plot. You don't just get his seal, because I believe his seal is attached to his hand. It'd be a part of the ring. It'd be part of the insignia there. And so it wasn't like, but Ahab was trying to, do what we do. Wanting to do this, but trying to stay clean. Wanting to do bad choices and yield to what he wants. I really want that land. So whatever you have to do, I can't see, I don't hear, I don't know what's going on, playing the ignorant part as long as I get my land. His greed, jealousy, and selfishness overrode all of his other thinkings and wisdom. Reisman said this, she involved Ahab by the use of his seal on the directors to the local magistrates, the use of the king's royal dynastic administrative or even personal seal to gain his authority would require Ahab's collusion. There had to have been, but again, he's thinking all I want is that land. His desire for that land overrode his desire to do what was right. Alexander McLaren noted 3 types of dangerous characters in this chapter, and I think sometimes we are one of those and sometimes all 3 of those. Ahab, who was wicked and weak. He was just somebody who did not have the stability, did not have the stamina, did not have the maturity emotionally, physically, or spiritually to stand for what was right. Number 2, Jezebel, who was wicked and strong. That's a bad combination. Not only was she wicked, but she was strong. Number 3, the elders of Jezreel, who were wicked and subservient. If there was no 3, could there have been a 2? If there was nobody that she could make submit to her, could she have been that strong? No. She was counting on all of those subservients to do her bidding for her. So they proclaimed a fast. The idea that some evil had come upon Israel and that scapegoat was needed. Again, we're looking back, I'm not going to get into the Old Testament timeline and the dispensations, those type of things. But during this time, if something tragic had to happen or some evil had come upon Israel, there had to be a scapegoat. And guess who's going to be that scapegoat? Naboth. Well, I guess he is it. It reminds us of what David did to Uriah. Remember that? What did David want? Well, Bathsheba, but he was in a pickle at this point. He got Bathsheba, what he wanted from Bathsheba, but all of a sudden, lo and behold, a baby was on the way. So what did he have to do? The scapegoat was going to be Uriah. I'm going to set him up with a letter to go to the front of the battle, and then in the heat of the battle, I want everybody else to pull away. So he's defeating everybody else, and he will die. Now, the people who pulled away from that battle, don't you think the captains were thinking, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. We are literally setting him up to fail. If they were good soldiers and not just yes men to the king, they would say, that doesn't make sense. I don't know what, maybe it was a misspoken, translated, but we can't do this. Same thing happened here. Those magistrates should have said, that's a dumb idea. There's no way we're doing such things. Set Naboth on high among the people. This was a treacherous plan. He was going to be seated in a place of honor, then destroyed by the lies of scoundrels. What's the idea? He was going to be blindsided. He was going to be like, oh, everything's great. Look at this. All of this. Because he would not get rid of what was his. All of this. Because someone, Ahab, was greedy. All of this. Because someone had a Poochie Lip. That's it. All of this because someone was just greedy, and look what it led to. Well, my feelings, my emotions, my greed, my selfishness isn't hurting anybody. Those will lead to other sins. And then in the presence of the people saying, Naboth did blaspheme God and the king. 2 Kings chapter 9 in verse 26. Says, surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth, going back to the story, and the blood of his sons, saith the Lord. The idea in that comparing 1 Kings 21 to 2 Kings chapter 9 indicates that the crying was even worse than this, connecting the murder of Naboth with the blood of his sons. It is likely that the entire family of Naboth was murdered, so no heirs were left to claim his property. If Naboth was killed, who would have gotten the property? His sons. Sons killed, grandsons. It stays in the family. If there is no family, then who gets the land? The king. And Jezebel knew that, and she was willing to kill everyone. There was, I don't know if anybody here likes to go to plays, but there was play here in town. I don't know if it was, I don't know who wrote it. It's an old type of play. But the idea is the king or the ruler or the whoever is dead, and he has 10 sons, but the youngest son wanted to be the next ruler. So what does he have to do to become the ruler? Off the other 9. So the whole comedy plays about how he's doing that to all of his brothers and stuff and that kind of thing. That's what Naboth did. If there is nobody left, then I can just take this as government type of thing. The stoning of Naboth over a piece of land shows where jealousy and covetousness can take someone. I would never get that far. I don't think Ahab, when he left Naboth's land, said, you're going to die. You're going to die for that. I'm going to get that. No, I don't think that. He's pretty spineless in that way. But what eventually happened? Did Ahab have the authority to tell Jezebel no? Yes, he did. Would he have? No. Why would Ahab not tell Jezebel no? Because he liked living and breathing. Because he would have died if he told Jezebel no. But if he had said no to her a long time ago, that's wicked, that's wrong. But what did Ahab know? Even though he was not as strong a person as Jezebel was, he was still wicked on the inside. So he was allowing the strong people to do what he really felt. And so his greed, his jealousness, his selfishness led to things that no one would expect. Naboth would never expect it, that when he said no, he's putting himself and his sons at risk of their lives. You think, well, my jealousy, my feeling that I really want that, or I should have had that, or my thinking that life is unfair, it will never get to that point. A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. The small foxes spoil the vines. Don't allow the small sins to dwell and to grow to become what you thought would never happen. There are so many accounts in Scripture of how men of God and women of God allowed small things to start and then became a fire that they could not put out. Be happy with what God has given you. Let's pray. God, thank you for all you've given us. Thank you for time to come this evening and open your word. I pray that as we look at what we have, well, you are great, God. All the things, well, what a blessing it is that you give and you give and you give. And if you decided to take away, that's fine. It was yours to begin with. If we see everything that we have as being yours, when it is gone, it shouldn't bother us because it was never ours to begin with. We thank you for allowing us to be stewards of the things that you put in our lives, and help us not to get any glimpse of that selfishness and greed in our lives. We love you. Just now I pray.